Thanks for tuning in to this episode of Once a DJ. If you'd like to support the show, then head to onceadj.com/support to find out how you can help. If you'd like to get in touch with any feedback or suggestions, email onceadjpodcast@gmail.com. Once a DJ is produced by the good people at Remote Control. If you'd like to find out more about working with them, head to remote-ctrl.co.uk. Time for the show.
Nice.
Welcome back to Once a DJ, and this week I'm here with Phil Lembke, a.k.a. Sticky Dojah. Germany born and raised, and now based in New York with a range of gigs across bars, clubs, galleries and corporates. He's also a remixer, curator and journalist, and a graduate of the inaugural Red Bull Music Academy. Today we're going to discuss his early years and the experiences that shaped him into the DJ that we see today. Phil, thanks for coming on the show. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me.
You're more than welcome. I'm really excited to get into your story and understand it, because it's going to be quite different to a lot of the other guests that we've got in terms of your geographical journey and probably your cultural exposure growing up. So do you want to start from? Start from where's best for you, really.
Yeah, I obviously listen to a lot of the podcasts you have done. I've loved the series, and I'm happy to be a part of it. And I guess I'm the first one that's kind of from the German area, but a lot of my upbringing and socialization with music and DJ culture maybe mirrors a lot of the things that other people already talked about, but then because where I'm from, there's lots of different things happen as well. So I try to keep it as exciting as possible. Yeah, I think the first, let's start like in the early 80s. I was born in East Germany, but then we moved to West Germany before the wall came down. It's a long story. That's for another podcast. Won't go into that. But I was basically living in West Germany with my parents in asylum houses for refugees, because we were a refugee family from East Germany to West Germany. We only spoke the same language, but I came from a completely different political system. And then we had the chance to visit West Berlin for the first time, which was November 83. So because we never made it to the West, and West Berlin was, even though it was still located in East Germany, like West Berlin was, part of the Western world. And I will never forget, walking with my parents through Kudamm, which was one of the most famous streets, and seeing these boys just moving like robots and seeing this boombox. And I was like, what is this? And that was my first, when I always say, I caught the first wave of hip hop. That's, when all of this came to Europe, it was Turkish b-boys, and then they went around with a hat and collected money. And I'm like, what is this? So that's where I kind of was already intrigued. Okay, what is this sound? And then living with my parents in these asylums, we had a black and white television, and then the early music shows in Germany started. There was one. It was called Formula One, and I would see Phil Collins Against All Odds, doing it live, or I remember the Thriller Michael Jackson video premiere, and I was too young to watch it, and my parents were like, "Oh, you might want to look away." And then that year, I went to a record store in Aachen when we finally moved to Aachen in West Germany, where I basically grew up and have spent a considerable amount of time of my life. I remember it was probably 84 by then when we went to a record store for the first time with my parents. And there were two albums on the wall. One had these white gloves. It was breakdance music compilations. And the other one was West Street Mob, on Sugar Hill Records, and that was kind of my first record. And I was just, okay, and now put two and two together, and I got really into breakdancing as a tiny young kid, and that was my first love.
So was in East Germany then, was it very much kind of Russian sort of cultural influence?
There was, yes, there was, but obviously we lived close enough to the border that we had access to Western television because it was all terrestrial back then.
Right.
There was a part in East Germany, like the southeastern part, that didn't have access to Western media. We had, and there was also a state-owned label called Amiga, and they would license Western music. So when I grew up, Pink Floyd was played a lot in the house, like The Wall. Actually, one of my first childhood memories is putting the needle onto a record and it was AC/DC's Highway to Hell. I'll never forget, like the first chords, the guitar chords. So that all happened, before we left, like in around 82, early 83. And yeah, my parents always had records. So, it was Dire Straits. It was Earth, Wind and Fire, best of. I vividly remember Got to Get You Into My Life. That was always played in the house and my mom would dance. So there was a lot of soul music, a lot of classic rock. And I remember then, when we went to West Germany, when we were living in West Germany, one of the first things is my parents took me to a concert in Cologne, and it was Supertramp, John Baez, and I think Santana, something like this. So there was always, my parents were always very much into music, and then. But I try to hold on to these hip hop things, we're talking about this first wave, and. I remember then in 1985, but now I'm looking for people outside of my house that are also into dancing. I wanted to dance, and all the kids were like, well, this happened last year. This is so 1984, and then we're playing football now, and so. But I kept this urge to be I want to know more about this music and the dancing, and I was kind of on my own, dancing in my room, and had a Rocksteady Crew poster on the wall and all of that. And then obviously, being a kid, I was listening to all kinds of stuff, and then also kids music, and it wasn't all only hip hop, but I tried to catch these glimpses of stuff. And I remember I got really into Miami Vice. And they had I think Melly Mel had a song on the soundtrack. It was Miami Vice rap. So I'm like, okay, this is connected to my favorite TV show and then I think by 87 my parents had a sampler and there was Beastie Boys on it. She's on It.
Yeah.
Remember that song? And I remember we went to a local restaurant, and the son of the owner came to me and he's like, have you heard of the Beastie Boys? They have women in cages on stage that throw beer cans. And I was like, what? Very intrigued. And then another big thing, obviously, was the advent of cable television in Germany.
Yeah. So, can I just ask, sorry, moving from east to west, how difficult or easy was it to make friends and interact with the Western kids? Were there any sort of difficulties there?
Well, I can quickly tell the story of I basically went to a socialist kindergarten in East Germany where everything was everything was given an order for. So now you sleep, now you brush your teeth, and it was really strict. It was all kind of military. And I remember then we lived in Heidelberg, which has there was big GI bases, army bases from the States, and a lot of the kids were actually American army kids. And I remember the first days I was in kindergarten, I was just sitting around and doing nothing, and then the kindergarten teacher just went to my parents and was like, something is wrong with your son, he doesn't interact, he doesn't play. And my parents were like, no, he's waiting for orders. That's how brainwashed I was from the socialist kindergarten. Then once they were like, you're free to go, you're free to touch everything, you can do whatever you want here, basically. Then I was good. But it was definitely a change in the political system, for sure.
That must be a big thing for a kid to readjust to a whole different set of societal rules.
Yes, and it also... this whole thing of leaving a country kind of moving like became a thing for my family. Like we were always moving. Even within Aachen, we moved, I don't know, like 15 times or something crazy. Like I never really had a home for forever. It was always just a couple years here, 3 years here, 5 years there maybe, you know. So
did music become something that you kind of depended on as a constant then, given that amount of variety and change is instability a fair word to say?
Yeah, I mean, my parents always were looking out for me, and I wouldn't say that my childhood was unstable or anything like that. There was a lot of love in the house, especially because of what we went through. But music was always there, and I was just intrigued by music, just constantly, and especially this like hip hop and soul music, because that's what I've resonated most with. I remember, like, you know, talking about cable television, like this, there was this show about, there was a TV show about Vietnam, about like some series, I think it was called Nam or something. And I will never forget, like, hearing, they played Marvin Gaye's What's Going On in one of the shows. And I will never forget, like, rushing to the stereo boombox that was in the kitchen and trying to tape that song off the television. And yeah, just memories like that, you know, just that would be something that I would just hold on to forever, and just like, wow, what is this? And I wanted to know more about that. And then by the late 80s, you know, it was also like the radio became really important, just like classic sitting under the bed sheet with the radio on and switching to AM and hearing the BBC for the first time. And then they had a German radio station, Radio 1, kind of similar to the BBC, and there was a radio show called Graffiti. And then this must have been like 89. I will never forget, like, all of a sudden I hear these beats, and it was Tough Crew from Philly. So in that radio show, they would play like the newest US rap that came out, like underground rap, but also like death metal. I remember then the next song was like Death by Dawn, by Dayside or something crazy. But I remember I only had like the last 15 seconds of that Tough Crew song, and it took me years to actually find out what it was and find the record in a record store.
Did you find almost like the game sort of nature of, oh, what's this thing I need to try and find out about it? Did you find that almost that kind of challenge a lot of fun? Because I think it can be quite satisfying, can't it? When you find the satisfaction you get when you realise something like that.
I was actually, I think now thinking back, or maybe I just make that up now in my mind, I was more frustrated that I didn't have more access, because I was still young. I was like 12 years old, and I remember like going to a skate shop, and then the clerk, he had tapes, and he was like, okay, listen to this, and it was like EPMD, You Gots to Chill, and I heard a talk box for the first time in my life, that Zap sample. It just blew me away, but I was too young. And then these older kids were like, hey, you know, Public Enemy's performing in Cologne next month. You want to come with us? And I'm like, oh, I'm kind of still too young. But then by the next year, I think in 91, with a friend from school, I convinced my parents, okay, I want to go to a rap show. And it was actually Gangstar and Dream Warriors and some other acts from Canada. And that was obviously huge for me. Like, I remember like getting a Step in the Arena for my 30th birthday from a friend of mine. That kind of cemented it. At the same time, I think early 91 was when I got into Massive Attack, and just understanding that there was also like this, the UK as a, you know, something that also makes hip hop. Or on a trip to Paris with my mom, I went to the HMV store and bought the first NTM Nick Ta Mère album, Authentique, which is now obviously like a French classic. I mean, they had it's one of the biggest crews, and just that I kind of became aware, okay, in every country this is happening. Rap music is happening, and they're rapping in their own language. And there was still a time when there was a little bit of German rap already happening, also at a pop level, at a major label level, but the quality was just not there. And there was still a lot of people rapping in English in Germany.
Have you seen that MTM program on Netflix,
Yes.
biopic? Oh, it's really good.
Yeah. It's the whole thing. There's the cinematography and how they, French rap was always ahead of the German rap scene, I'd say, by 3 to 5 years at least. And then like early 90s is when this whole thing like really blew up for me. Just going to the record stores by myself, and then at the same time, doing kids parties in someone's parents' basement and like mosh pitting to like Police, So Lonely, because we heard it from the older brothers and sisters, and like still rock was still there. Like I remember like finding out about Jimi Hendrix, Voodoo Child, and a friend of mine who's like bringing Led Zeppelin and that kind of stuff also was still around.
With the people that you were around, did they all tend to be quite sort of wide-ranging with their music taste? Because I know when I was growing up, people around where I am tended to be quite siloed, and I'm into this or I'm into this. You didn't get as many people that would kind of cross genres. Was it quite an open-minded society?
Yes, because of the fact that we grew up like in a like small town, there wasn't much. There was scenes like the older brothers. They got into like Front 242, the whole EBM thing. But for us, like we would literally just sit down. Like I remember, like in '93, just go to a friend's house and listen to DJ Crystal, like drum and bass. Then became big for us too, and we were just blown away by the production and the break beats and everything. And then, well, at the same time, we would listen to Roger Waters' music For the Body and laugh at the fart noises on the record, and like just being kids, like it wasn't that serious. We kind of developed this understanding, okay, this is something that we want, but this whole thing of like being in a scene and just being like, this is hip hop, this is not hip hop, or this is that came much later. In the beginning it was like everything, which I came back in my DJing later on back to that kind of mindset of having just an open mind and anything goes.
I suppose if you're somewhere that's away from a bigger city, it's harder to engage in the tribalism of music in a way, because it's harder to dress a certain way in the kind of uniform of that type of music, for example.
Well, speaking of that was something that was, people probably don't understand that anymore. For example, the whole fashion thing that comes with music, we didn't have access to that. And if you talk to people in Germany, the older writers, by that time I was also getting into graffiti and street culture, just running around in the town, you meet other kids and older kids. And I remember like I desperately wanted a pair of Puma baskets or Puma suede, like the shoes. You couldn't just access them or buy them. And I remember an older writer friend, he would go to London, and he brought back some Pumas for me, and I was just the king in school, and then all the other school kids were like, why are you wearing your grandfather's old football shoes? Like, what's going on? No one had seen fat laces at that point, for example, in my school. We were kind of the first people to, and then we're like, why do you have these big laces? What's the code here? Like no one understood. But it was hard in the beginning to get stuff, and obviously then during the 90s, with the German hip hop scene just growing and growing, magazines started, and then eventually it got into mail orders, like around 96, 97. But even before that, we were always just trying to get stuff, and I believe, like for example, the first official Superstars reissues were only available like in late '92, early '93, all over Germany. So before that, you really had to know where to get stuff.
The Superstars reissues, they rap reissues?
The Adidas. No, I mean the shoe.
Oh, sorry.
It was, there was a time when, some people in Berlin, they had specialist shops and they had people flying to New York or Paris and then buying stuff in bulk and bringing it back. But we didn't have access to that, because Aachen is a it's really the heart of Europe, which was also good for traveling. It's right at the border to Netherlands and Belgium. So I literally grew up walking distance from the Dutch and Belgian border. I could walk across the border and I was in another culture. So that was really a huge bonus of living there. And that's why we were also really more drawn to the Netherlands, Belgium, and even England, because London geographically it's closer than Berlin to us, growing up most Western Germany. Yeah. So going to London at the time was, maybe 4 or 5 hours with the ferry and bus and everything. Now there's a direct train. It's like via Brussels is 2.5, 3 hours. And going to Berlin is 7.5, 8. So, we were always drawn to that. And then we also, because of the British forces that were stationed around Aachen and Mönchengladbach in that area, we had access to British radio. There was actually a show in the early 90s by a guy called Steve Mason, the Steve Mason Experience. I don't know if he was actually famous in the UK as a DJ.
I've not heard of him.
Yeah, he was with the British forces and he was traveling around the world, and wherever he was stationed, he would do a radio show. And he was stationed in Germany at the time, and he would play early hardcore and breakbeats and early jungle. So we had access to that. And then the other really important person that was on that radio station was David Rodigan. He had his reggae show. So by that time, 93, we were just always religiously listening to that and just getting all this input. And then the other important radio show came actually from Amsterdam. It was called Dutch Masters, a hip hop show that I discovered in 93. I think the first, just being on the radio, dialing in, and then I think the first song was Only When I'm Drunk by the Alcoholics. And I'm like, wow. And that was the direct gateway to New York for us. And it was once again, it was terrestrial radio. So if you were in Cologne, if you were 70 kilometers east, you couldn't get that station. But because we were so close to the border, it opened us up for what was to come, because they had all the imports, all the new records, a week after they came out in New York.
That's crazy. Hey guys, I hope you're enjoying Once a DJ. I wanted to create a product for the listeners to be able to support the show, and for the guests as a token of gratitude for being on. So I've teamed up with Sure Shot Shop to create some Once a DJ 45 RPM adapter clamps. These are my weapon of choice as a 45 adapter, as they add stability and grip to aid you in any setup. These are available for £25 each plus flat fee postage from onceadj.bigcartel.com. And if you'd like to see the other models you can buy and also customise, check out sureshotshop.com. If you're an avid collector of timeless music on vinyl but don't have the budget to fork out for those pricey originals, then look no further than Be With Records. From library music to yacht rock, jazz, hip hop, disco and beyond, Be With lovingly reissue some of the coolest classics. All of their records are carefully remastered and cut to the highest standards to make sure the pressings are of peak audio quality and do justice to the music being released. And something else to note is that they don't do limited runs to drive up resale and hype. If the demand is there, they'll repress, as the focus is the music, not the profit margin. They have flat rate shipping and free UK shipping on orders over £60. And if you head to bewithrecords.com and use the discount code ONCEADJ, all one word, you'll get 10% off your order. So head to bewithrecords.com and level up those crates today. So when UK hip hop was big in the early 2000s, when that wave of it was going on, I should say, a lot of my friends were quite into it, but I just never quite got into it. I mean, I'm For me, I'm more beats than lyrics, and I just didn't quite click with it in the same way as some of my friends did. But I think also at that time I was getting more interested in samples and sample culture and looking backwards. But yeah, it was quite strange that it was such a prominent scene in my country, but I didn't really grab onto it. What was your experience like with the German hip hop, given that you were there and you had such a variety of influences?
I was pretty much there from when the very first records came out, and it was actually a scene when people identified as hip hop, and it wasn't just novelty rap in German. It was I was there to see the switch from English language, from bad English records to actually, okay, we need to rap in our own language because other people in other countries are doing it. And then by 92, 93, you had records. There was one group called Advanced Chemistry, and they were like, it was like an Italian immigrant son. It was like a half Haitian, half German guy who became later on like a very prominent figure. His name is Torch in German hip hop. So yeah, all of that mixed in with like the drum and bass influence from England, and then seeing the local German hip hop scene growing, I always felt that okay, the spirit is there, the people are there, but there were very few records that were really like on a level with American productions and even like UK productions, because you have to understand also at the time there was this sound called Britcore in the early 90s, mid 90s, that was huge in certain parts in Germany, and like really spoke to the German crowd too, like especially in Hamburg, and there were lots of people mimicking it in German, like really like this fast rap style and just having gibberish English, like you couldn't understand a word, but we liked the energy and obviously the break beats and everything.
Yeah.
And that was also the time, maybe like around 95, when I really got into, okay, I want to DJ. I want to do something with these records that I already had. And I remember like my friend Frido, also known as DJ Demic, he's still active. He also does podcasts and radio now in Germany. He already had 2 turntables, and he called me one day and was like, I got it. I'm able to mix now. I can mix records in beat. And I'm like, what? Still wasn't able to do that. So I had this competition. Okay, I need to get into that. And I went to his house, and it was 1995, and he had Ray Keith, the Terrorist, and he mixed it with Roxette, Listen to Your Heart. Which is crazy, but it's like it was a mashup essentially. But it worked for like for a couple of bars, and we're like, oh, this is crazy. And then I borrowed equipment. I had a tape deck and a belt-driven turntable that had a little pitch, and I went home and I tried, and then I remember it was with drum and bass records actually. I don't know which ones it was exactly, but yeah. And then it clicked, and I was able to mix, and that was a huge thing. So that was around 95, and then going further into timeline, like by 96, I had first had my name on a flyer and did my first party in Aachen, and it was the summer of the Fugees. The score was really big, and I got a first glimpse of this thing as a DJ where the requesting, because I was still playing like Digital Underground and playing like a little bit older records that I had, all these LPs. And I remember the girls at the party, they were already requesting like Lauryn Hill and the Fugees. And I'm like, all right, I see that because it's new and I understand. And by that time, I mean, I came up with drum and bass, as I said, but there were simply too many drum and bass DJs in Aachen for this tiny town. So I went into hip hop, and by 95, with my friend Frido and another friend Jochen, we started practicing, and we had one guy in our school. He already was part of a DJ pool. And he invited us one day, and he was more into house and electronic music, but he had Artifacts, Wrong Side of the Tracks. He had Mobb Deep, Shook Ones, all these 12 inches. And he's like, I don't really need this. You just want to buy them from me for like 5 Deutschmarks.
Oh, nice.
And we were like, yes. And that made me also understand, okay, there's this DJ service thing, DJ pools, where you can get records sent to you. It's amazing. And with those records, we just practiced, and and then I finally, by 96, I started doing my own like little parties, and was booked here and there in the town, because I mean it's a fairly small town. It's like 300,000 people, so there weren't that many opportunities or locations even where you could DJ. But by that time, it was also like exploding. There was a party called Massive Tunes, which was a pure drum and bass party, but they had a second room where I would DJ and just play, I don't know, like early Daft Punk, and then but also like, you know, instrumental hip hop and a little bit of rap, and just trying to make sense of it, not really knowing what I'm doing.
Did you find that kind of moving around developed your social skills in a way that you were good, like with dealing with promoters and things like that? Did it give you like that sort of confidence?
Not really. I mean, it was a very small scene, and I got to know all the people and was trying to find my way. And I mean, in the beginning, I remember like for my first party, the guy, it was like in a movie, like he was like wearing sunglasses. He's like, I invite you to dinner, and you're gonna have this great party, and you're gonna have this crazy career. I was like 18 years old, and he's just telling me all these things, and I'm like, okay. But I fairly early on realized that it's that whole promotion game. I never was really too good at it, and it's, I don't know, like if my social skills developed through that or anything, but I was always trying to just make a good set and have, you know, people come back, and sometimes that was difficult, you know, because you have this idea of what you want to present to people, and then they're somewhere else with what they expect. But at the same time, I think a lot of the people were in our town were just thankful that something was going on. Yeah.
So were you very much pure hip hop when you were DJing at that point, or were you throwing in bits of other stuff as well?
Totally bits of other stuff as well. The whole hip hop thing came a bit later. I think by 97, it started to manifest more. I got out a little bit of the like buying drum and bass records, because simply it was the sound was changing a little bit. It got darker, more technical, and I also had more and more access through the radio shows, and also through a trip to New York in the summer of 1997. I just finished school, and that trip just blew everything wide open. It's crazy, because I went to the Rocksteady anniversary. I saw Stretch Armstrong playing at the HMV store. I met the Beatnuts. I was just hanging out at Fat Beats for a day, just up like a sponge. Just, okay, who's coming in here? Oh, there's Crazy Legs over there, and and then I remember like through mail order we got access to the first Invisible Scratch Pickles VHS tapes. We went on trips to Amsterdam, because Amsterdam was 3 hours away, and we went to the Paradiso and Melkweg, big clubs that still exist in Amsterdam. DJ Babu was DJing. All of a sudden Fat Beats opened up in Amsterdam, so we would go there and buy 12 inches. And I mean that was the summer when the first when the independent hip hop scene really like, you know, all these things came out, like Dilated Peoples and Mos Def, and Raucous became big. So by that time it was pretty obvious, okay, this is just what I want to do, and what I'm looking for.
So that trip to New York, was the intention just to soak up as much hip hop as possible?
Well, it was kind of like I've been to New York, and then my father, he was doing work in the US, and he was like, why don't you come with me and we'll spend some time in New York in between, and I'll make it work. And for me, that was like just soaking it all up, just running around and listening to the radio. I mean, I remember like taping. We were living in Jersey and always taking the train into New York, and I was taping the Stretch and Barbito show. Yeah, and I was just blown away by everything. And I mean,
is that the era when they had all the incredible freestyles on?
Yeah, and just like the shit talking also. Like I remember taping one where LP was there and they were talking about this what was this movie with Kevin Costner, Waterworld. and they were like, oh, can you imagine if it would be like Pork World and everything would be made out of pork, and that humor, but then also like just being in record stores in New York was just phenomenal. And I remember this like I spent all my money on Fat Beats and went down to West 4th Street and there was another small record shop. I forgot what it was, but I walked in and I clearly had no money and I had no idea what I'm doing. But I was like, okay, I gotta ask a good question. I'm like, hey, do you have Incredible Bongo Band, Apache? and the guy was like, yeah, we got it. And but I wanted it on 12-inch. I wanted the 12-inch bootleg that everybody was talking about, and they didn't have that. But then the girl rolled by on roller skates and was asking for Marvin Gaye Sexual Healing, and he just gave her the 45, and she just rolled off to the streets. It was like a movie, and I'm like, what is this here? I need to... And I mean, that trip, that energy really helped me for years, like coming back to Germany, and being like, wow, this is it.
Had you got a plan after school then had you got an intention of I'm going to go to New York and come back and do a certain thing? And if so, did that change through the experience of that trip?
No, it was more... So 97, I finished school and then it was like, okay, I have to go to university. What's my best strategy? And there was a really good university just right across the border in a town called Maastricht. And that's where I enrolled for...
that's Netherlands, isn't it?
International Business Studies. That's Netherlands, yeah. One of the oldest towns in the Netherlands. And it was literally just a half an hour car ride away. But you're in a completely different world. It's a different language, it's a different country. So I enrolled in 98... to study there, but it was very much separated. I had my DJ life in Germany, which eventually spilled over to Maastricht because I made contacts there and had with DJing student parties and stuff later on. But I kept it fairly. I mean, not really. I have to go back and say that we did a lot of trips to the Netherlands, and we were also part of a thing called the Hip Hop Cafe in a small town called Sittard, where me and my friend from Germany would go, and we would be the only Germans, which also then led to me doing my first DJ battle in 1998 in the Netherlands. It was called Battle of the Highlands. It was a local DMC battle. It was just me and two other guys, and I won that actually. I was practicing a lot at the time, like from 97 to 98, but the others were also really bad. And then, and I remember one of the judges was DJ Kipski. I don't know if you heard of him. He's still one of the best turntablists from the Netherlands. Like he does tone scratching and all of that. Please look him up if you haven't. And he asked me afterwards, and he's like, did you know that you would win this? And I'm like, yeah, I did, because I knew who was going on against. That same year, I enrolled for a battle in Amsterdam called Turntableized, which was in the Paradiso Club. It was in a big club, and I was just scared shitless, and I did not place. I was just like, and all the Dutch guys were making fun of me. I was like the only German, like, battling in the Netherlands. It was fun, but it was like clearly getting out of my comfort zone, and also a testament to the fact that we were always more drawn to the Netherlands or like that border lifestyle than going east into Germany.
How much of the performance was that your skill level wasn't as good as theirs, and how much of it was, did the nerves just get to you? Because I know what it's like when you do a battle and you're shaking, trying to put your needle on, and you're queuing up and it doesn't quite go over your tape marker in the right way and stuff like that if it's going wrong.
Well, it was, I remember, so going back to that New York trip, on that Rocksteady anniversary, I met Christy Pabon, who was doing DMC US at the time, and I actually gave her a demo of like little beats that I made. And which a year later resulted in me and another friend. We produced a remix for J. Rue the Damager that came out in the UK, actually on DMC UK in '98. But she was at the time, she had these. I forgot the name of the DJ. He was also like he was kind of like a rock guy. I think he was the US DMC champion in '96.
Swamp?
Swamp, yeah. And Swamp had the skip-proof scratch tools.
Yeah.
And she would send them to me. Like I would buy them from her and would practice with those. And I was thinking at the turntable I spent, okay, at least the needle won't skip because I have these skipless. And I remember actually the other guys making fun of me that I was using that, because they weren't, and it was pretty, a lot of ego and like insecurity. You know how these battles were back then. It was like it was gruesome.
Well, I mean, it's like when I talked to Dee and she was on about guys sabotaging her needles and stuff. I was mind blown. But yeah, like you say, I mean, in that world there was a lot of braggadocio and bravado and stuff like that, wasn't there? So I guess it comes with that sort of territory.
Yeah, and then I think a year later I enrolled again, and then by then I was more comfortable, and there's actually also video footage of that. And I remember I got applause after my set, and I felt really great. I did well, and I think I was at the same level of points as another Dutch guy, but because I was German, I think they picked the Dutch guy to go to the next round, which I was fine with. It was just more for the experience, but that was like my short-lived battle career. But it made me, practice and get more into that. And then that year, '98, when I did my first battles, was also the year I went to the very first Red Bull Music Academy in Berlin.
What was that like?
That was just incredible. It was so they send out application forms to all the record stores in Germany. It was national only for the first one. It was kind of like a test balloon to do it internationally. And I remember you had to apply, you had to like fill out all these questions, and I got a yes, and it was like, okay, you're going to Berlin for 2 weeks, and there's going to be this house filled with turntables, and it was just like a playground for DJs. And pretty much the first thing that happened was we're sitting in a room, and the first interview that they did was Jeff Mills, and then there was Juan Atkins, and then it was the Executioners swinging by, and then it was some reggae sound system. Then someone would came and talk about how labels work, and it was just, and then you would go into the house and just find a room with turntables and just practice and jam together with other people, and that for 2 weeks. And then I even came back for another 2 weeks. They had a second set where I just made it work somehow with my civil services at the time that I was doing, kind of got out of that, and then just that was a huge game changer for me too, obviously meeting all these people. That's also when I started to write for music magazines, because one of the founders of Red Bull Music Academy was a chief editor of one of the biggest music magazines at the time, and he asked me to start writing about music and doing interviews.
What was that based on then? Was it based on your music knowledge or your DJing skill, or was it something in terms of the quality of application that you'd done?
I think it was a mixture of that. I asked them about my application, and then one of the guys told me that, yeah, you were pretty much one of the first that went through, like, because I had always had this bird's eye view. It wasn't just hip hop. It wasn't just because I mean, it's Germany. Like, I went to my first rave in 1993. You know, there's this was always around. So I had a fairly global understanding of music and reggae and all kinds of things. Not that I was an expert in everything, but I saw how different things interacted. And
yeah, because I asked that just because, I mean, I applied for the Red Bull Music Academy one year, and I just remember it was an absolute beast of an application form when I did it.
Yeah, it was it took me a couple of nights, and then like really like do this half-hour mix. I remember I worked on it for weeks, and just like I wanted to do it right, and it worked out. But then obviously it became, I think when you applied, it was already on such a level that it was just, I mean, look at it, who came out of this and who was part of it, like who's an alumni.
Yeah.
It's just incredible talent that was featured over the years,
Who is there? I mean, I can't think off the top of my head.
Oh, I think like Flying Lotus was there. I think DJ Day from Palm Springs.
Right.
And then lots of people that I forgot or probably don't know, but who are doing amazing things right now.
There are a couple of pretty incredible ones though there that you've mentioned.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, it was great to have that, just being a part of that, and then obviously like seeing all these shows in Berlin, going to the old Tresor and seeing who's there, Company Flow, and then it's just all this music just as an input. And then by then, coming back to, I still resided in Aachen, going to uni and just doing parties in clubs in Aachen and doing my own parties. And then we started also doing open air parties because there was this hill where the three countries meet. And I had friends that were living in Belgium at the time, and we just got a sound system together and we started our party in Belgium, and then the Belgian cops came. It's a funny story actually, how specific that area is. And they were just like, you can't do this here. And we're like, well, how about we go 50 meters left to the German side? And they were like, well, that's not our jurisdiction. So we took the whole thing over to the German side and set up again. And we're just partying in the fields. And then the Dutch cops came actually on the German side. They were like, we got complaints from the Dutch side, but it's not our jurisdiction, but we're just telling you we don't want to call our German colleagues, so maybe turn it down a little bit. And it was just just funny parties like that where you just toy around with the cops in that area. You can literally jump from country to country up there on that mountain. It's funny.
Did they find it amusing or frustrating?
Both. There were parties where I remember I was DJing and a cop would always almost handcuff me because I was not turning down the music immediately, and they were very aggressive. And then there were other times where, because it's borderland, so they were just searching for drug smugglers or
right.
Human trafficking. And then I was DJing and I turned down the music because I saw the cops approaching, and they were just like, well, did we tell you to turn the music down? And I'm like, no. Why do you do it? Like they almost like wanted to mingle with us. It's funny. So it went both ways in that. And obviously, I think nowadays, I don't know if that's still possible. It's the same as in England with the. I mean, I don't want to compare what we had to what was happening with illegal raves in England, but just similar, like the cops crushing down on it eventually.
Sure. Was there ever any sort of temptation to move to Berlin?
Never, because what we had was good enough. I had my university that was half an hour away. We even then in 99 started to have our own pirate radio station in Aachen called Loudfm, which then eventually turned into a online radio outfit in the town. But yeah, even that, we had like a little glimpse of that, had this old radio equipment, actually from East Germany, from the old East German army forces. Someone brought that in. Right. And then we had we would be on terrestrial radio for a good summer, like on the weekends, 3 to 4 hours every weekend. One of the supers in the house was involved, and he would let us have a go with the antenna on the roof, and it was a good experience. So I had all this, and I was by then also part of the biggest German record pool. So I would get all these rockers 12 inches, Stones Throw 12 inches, Groove Attack was in Cologne was closed. So there was a lot of things happening with records, and then just establishing ourselves with different parties in the town in the early 2000s. And by that time, I was also working for a German record label called Put the Needle to the Records. They would publishing German rap albums. Quite successful at the time. The label then also set up a mail order, so I would work in the mail order. And I think by 2002, that whole first big German rap bubble, hip hop bubble, where the majors put a massive amount of money into it, kind of burst, and then also the company folded. But I still stayed in Aachen and just did my studies and my parties.
Hey guys, I hope you're enjoying Once a DJ. I wanted to create a product for the listeners to be able to support the show and for the guests as a token of gratitude for being on. So I've teamed up with Sure Shot Shop to create some Once a DJ 45 RPM adapter clamps. These are my weapon of choice as a 45 adapter, as they add stability and grip to aid you in any setup. These are available for £25 each plus flat fee postage from onceadj.bigcartel.com. And if you'd like to see the other models you can buy and also customise, check out sureshotshop.com. If you're an avid collector of timeless music on vinyl but don't have the budget to fork out for those pricey originals, then look no further than Be With Records. From library music to yacht rock, jazz, hip-hop, disco and beyond, Be With lovingly reissue some of the coolest classics. All of their records are carefully remastered and cut to the highest standards to make sure the pressings are of peak audio quality and do justice to the music being released. And something else to note is that they don't do limited runs to drive up resale and hype. If the demand is there, they'll repress, as the focus is the music, not the profit margin. They have flat rate shipping and free UK shipping on orders over £60. And if you head to bewithrecords.com and use the discount code ONCEADJ, all one word, you'll get 10% off your order. So head to bewithrecords.com and level up those crates today. I suppose that timing comes with when downloads were starting to emerge as well, and physical music purchasing was slowing down, I guess.
That was a little later. I mean, we're still talking early 2000s. I remember just before that all hit, like as a DJ, one of my vivid memories was, when people talk about breaking a record.
Yeah.
And I had that experience with Missy Elliott's Pass That Dutch, because I had the promo. I got the promo sent on a Friday. I was DJing that Friday, and I went to the club and I was DJing with a friend who ran the local reggae sound system called Smallax, and I told him I have the new Missy Elliott and we have to, this has to be the record of the night. So how do we do it? And he was like, all right, let's announce it. So we announced it. I played it once, did a rewind, played it twice, and then I think over the course of the evening did that 5 times, and by the last time, just the whole place went nuts. And in the beginning they were like, what is this? And then it was just like, okay, boom. And that's an experience. I don't know if people still can have that with just how music is consumed nowadays or how it's accessible. Because at the time, I was the only one with that song in the town. It was funny.
Was it like, did you listen to it the first time and just go, this is going to be huge?
Yeah. I was like, this is, at the time, especially for the clubs, this was such a massive club record, or, anything that Timbaland did at that time was just amazing. Like music evolution in real time. But yeah, moving on from that, then at the end of my studies, I did a year abroad, which was in Prague. So I connected with the local hip hop scene in Prague and got really into connecting there with local artists, and also then was asked to perform at the Hip Hop Camp, which is the biggest hip hop festival in Central Europe. And started writing for Czech magazines, actually. I picked up a little bit of Czech, but I was obviously writing in English because my Czech wasn't that good. But yeah, that was also really instrumental, obviously, to connect and get another experience of DJing in another country. And then coming back by 2006, I finished my studies. I took my time with my studies. You can see, like, DJing was always more important to me, but I was eager to finish it, and it wasn't like an easygoing university. It was a, big thing, and it took a lot of time as well next to the music to finish that.
What was the course that you did?
It was called International Business. So it was a lot of business psychology and logistics, and I mean anything business. But the whole study was in English. That was kind of my thing. Okay, at least I get like the business English out of it, and there was a lot of pressure on it as well. Like I saw people like really having careers early on, like my peers like went to Adidas, worked there and that. I didn't have that. I was still like in my small town and doing my thing. At the same time, I had an alumni meeting years later where it was funny because I was then happy with what I did, and turning my passion into my job essentially, and still doing what I loved. And these other guys were like, yeah, I've been through the third consulting agency, and like it just wrecks me down. And it's like, and then, like I think I came out well, because in the beginning it was the other way. I felt like, I'm not really advancing in what I wanted to do, and I'm still in a small town. But then, you take this out of it and just be like, okay, this is actually, you just need to be happy and find something that you really want in life. And but then like obviously after my studies, it was like, okay, I really need to do something here. And I started working for a kind of like a cultural agency in Aachen that also ran this online radio station, and working on some projects there, but it was never something that I saw as a career. And then by 2008, I started working for other labels in Cologne again. And by 2008, I was like, all right, I have to do something. And I went full-time DJing. Like, I was like, okay, I'll make this work.
When you made that decision, did you have enough regular gigs coming in to keep you afloat, or were you at a certain percentage of what you would have needed? Because that's always a challenge with going full-time as a freelancer, not just with DJing, but say if you work as a designer or anything like that. It's like... Yeah.
Well, so what we did was I teamed up with a longtime companion I DJed many years with by the name of DJ Koma. And him and I, we started doing these parties in a club. He established a thing called Miyoki, and we were then the Miyoki DJ team. I had my other party, which was called Mad Lifted, from this old Mowax record, which says music for Mad Lifted Beat Junkies. Beat Junkies was already taken, so I took the Mad Lifted. And I think the first full-on independent party that we did was Halloween 2008, and it was more than 1,000 people. And we had... in a town with 300,000 people, so wow. It was massive. And we then developed a setup where we always had 6 turntables on stage. And we always had a guest in the middle. We would always invite an international guest or a national bigger DJ, and we were the sidekicks, literally. And that setup kind of became a thing, and it would also allow you as a DJ, you could just walk off stage, or you can come back and just go back into the set of the other person that's playing. And we would go nuts. We would just like quick mixing and just scratching and playing all kinds of stuff. It was like true open format, from chubby checker to drum and bass to underground hip hop to pop records. We didn't give a damn. And by that time, we would, invite international DJs. I mean, we had Boogie Blind, we had all the Lords of Fitness, Rafik, even like people like Miles Bonney, who brought his trumpet, or J-Ro from the Alcoholics, all the Danish DJs. Very happy we had DJ Noise.
Nice.
He was doing a club set, not like a performance or anything. He was playing an actual club set, and to get him out to do a club set, that took some time, because he was already at another level back then, like more family and music work behind the scenes. But yeah, that was a good run we had from like 2008 to about 2013. And that's when I left to New York, actually, straight from Aachen to New York.
So how did that come about then? How was that decision made?
So DJ Koma and I, we went with our, him and his family and friends. We went on a tourist trip to New York, just like, okay, I want to experience this again. And at the same time, friends of mine were in town from London, actually, from a crew called Live and Proof. I don't know if you, so DJ Khalil from Live and Proof is a long time friend of mine. We actually linked up at hip hop camp in the Czech Republic, and they were in town, and they introduced me to their New York friends, and all of a sudden it was like this thing where I meet people. I'm intrigued, and I remember coming back, and I called my dad and was like, I'm gonna make the move. Like, this is it. I was kind of ready. I had these parties in Aachen. I had a weekly at a student party where I could also play my stuff and like play in a smaller room, not in the main room. But I was, people were already asking me like, what are you still doing here? Like, you're destined for other things. And I didn't want to go to Berlin. It was like either New York or London. By that time, I already had played Live and Proof a couple of times. I was playing in London a few times with Khalil, and so had a bit of, seeing like just this international vibe, and just having a city where people come from all aspects of life. And I wanted to be a part of that again, and that made the decision fairly easy to make it in New York.
Did you have a set amount of time that you thought, I'm going to give it this amount of time, if it doesn't work I'll go back, or did you not even have that sort of doubt in your mind?
So in 2013 I was going back and forth, because obviously I wasn't not just moving next week, and especially not without a steady job or anything, but I made it work. I kind of hustled my way into the city, and I gave it, because I was going on a tourist visa. You go on the ESTA visa, so you have 3 months. And in these 3 months, you have to accomplish something. Otherwise, you have to go back. And through my music writing job, I was actually able to get a visa, a journalist visa, and then later on switch that to a green card. And because, I wasn't really writing about music at that point. That doesn't support you in New York anyway. So pretty quickly went into DJing again and established myself here. And I know a lot of people try that, and it's really hard, but it sounds so cliche and corny, but you have to believe in yourself. And obviously having a little bit of contacts, having people in the beginning that helped me tremendously was a big game changer for me. But then also, like, I wasn't, over the years, because, for example, we booked Boogie Blind, so I could visit him in Harlem. He knew who I was. And other people, I think you were on that forum too, like Soul Strut.
Yes.
So going back to the forum days, like I actually met people on that trip. I reached out and was like, hey, I'm going to be in New York, through Soul Strut, and then met like Doc Delay here, and he showed me around town. And it's just, I had a good intro to the city. And I think I was also, by that time I was 35. I was old enough to not completely lose myself here, and just be like, okay, I've got to treat this a little more seriously. And don't get me wrong, I did my fair share of partying and nightlife, and just networking and meeting people. But yeah, I was slowly built myself up here again, like slowly build up a record collection here again. Started doing bar gigs, started doing club gigs. And then eventually a year later or so was like DJing with Q-Tip, and had all these, like, all of a sudden these things were rolling in. Record store here started to, they asked me if I wanted to start working for them. And so all these things came into place again. It was I always believed in myself to be able to do that. But obviously it was hard, and there were days where I was like, I might have to go back. I don't know how I'm going to pay rent next month. But I had this core belief in myself and my abilities, and it worked out.
Do you think anything from your degree helped with just how you approach things?
Not necessarily. Maybe what really helped was, okay, I know I'm able to converse. I know how to use the English language, and I can make myself be understood. And I think the language really helped, and it was quick, and it was like, okay, I get the humor. I can be funny, and it's always something that interests me, like puns, and like I really like the English language. I like languages a lot, so that helped. And then obviously having this background of hip hop definitely helped, and which in turn was funny because then once you're here, I was always I call myself an ambassador of the culture in Europe, and writing about music, hip hop music, interviewing artists, making sure that what I thought rap is presented in the right way or whatever that was. I mean, I see it a bit more relaxed now. But then coming here, and it's like they don't really need me here as a white guy from Germany representing hip hop. So I also got into other things again and started opening up to other forms of music like funk, soul, disco, just house, and establishing that for myself.
I think from what I've heard of your mixes as well, it's all. I think some people have a really good sense of just like the right side of house that's kind of really accessible but isn't too mainstream.
That was always my sweet spot in a sense. I never had a problem with pop music. I always loved the deepest underground, so my spectrum is really wide. I mean, I've DJ'd for jazz bands. I've played in electronic jam sessions where it was like really abstract, where people would do scat sounds and like some weird dancing would happen, like, so just trying out different things and not being shy of taking your craft into like out of your comfort zone really helped me to also find what I'm comfortable at. And obviously when you go full time, I mean, I did weddings, I did things that might not have been this cool, or where even like the guys in Aachen back then, I remember they were like looking down on me, like all the cats from the scene. They didn't understand that I was DJing the student party, and like, this is not cool. And I'm like, I have to pay rent, and this is what I do. So there's only so much you can do with DJing in this small area. So I was doing all of it, So, and I encourage everyone to, if you really want to do this and you love it, then don't be shy to also step out of your comfort zone and do things that might seem strange a bit, or might seem like, this is not the right fit for me. You never know what comes out of it.
Yeah, I mean, I had a phase of did quite a few weddings. And if you'd have said to me at a certain point, yeah, you're going to start doing weddings, I'd have probably thought, no, I'm not. Why would I do that? And then when you do them and you can just let go a little bit, they can be really good fun and really satisfying. And the times when you can get the 70-year-olds dancing to Tribe Called Quest and things like that, there's a lot of fun in that, because you're playing their game, but you're winning a little bit, because you can kind of help it to be a little bit on your terms, which is quite good fun. Yeah,
and it's you have to be a certain type of person, I guess. It's not for everyone. If you're more of an artist-driven DJ, then you want to do yourself and want to have people actually come to see you, then that's what you need to strive for. I'm always kind of in the middle of that, so it makes it more difficult to present yourself or establish yourself. But I want to do this all my life in some sort of form. So your podcast also has opened up myself to have other thoughts, or like see it a little less stressed. It's funny because I was talking to a friend of mine who just got out of DJing a little bit, and he's like, I started my own company. And I'm like, but and he was kind of sad a little bit that he got out of the DJ game for it. And I'm like, well, but you can always come back. Like, there's I think we're at a point in our lives, in our society, where these clear driven careers are not happening anymore anyway, or less and less. Or if you want, you can have it, but it's also there's no shame in coming back to DJing after 10 years. It's like, if you're really good at it and you love it, you're gonna get back into it. It's like riding a bike. You need some practice again, yes, but if you have it and you still have this bug, like, why not,
Yeah, like I like that I spent some time away from DJing, because in the time I spent away from DJing, I kind of developed a career and kind of used a lot from DJing, from the thing of doing your own website, doing your own graphics and album covers, and again, bits of, nowhere near as much as you, but little bits of writing, and kind of use these skills and experiences to change my career path. And then with the career path kind of sorted, coming back to DJing, I've come back to it on my own terms in a very different way. And because with the DJing, before I stopped, I got pulled into, I'd go out with a Serato crate and play this, and this, and I got very samey with what I was doing. And now I'm back at it. I do battle with whether I should get a controller and start doing some Serato stuff, but then I'm like, if I do that, it opens up a lot of complications. And I think having just records, having limitations, it's fine. I don't DJ that much. And if I can just stick to that, I'm still going to get enough gigs to keep me going.
Yeah, and you need a structure or something where the stuff that you want to play, you're actually able to play. I mean, I'm very lucky and happy that I have residencies now here in New York where I can do what I want and people book me for that. And it's not like the whole request thing, for example, is not really a big thing in my world anymore. It's more like people coming up and being like, hey, that was really like, that was something, and I appreciate you playing this stuff that I didn't know. It's also the audience. You have to find this type of audience. And that being said, for anyone that starts, I think you were just mentioning a controller. Like I had someone asking me the other night, like, yeah, I want to get into DJing and I just bought this controller. I'm like, fine, like that's cool. Like I liked, as you said, I like the limitations of having only vinyl or having only this, but I think you should be open to anything and just whatever fits. I mean, right now, for example, I do a lot of video content as well that's purely based on vinyl. Just vinyl mixes and quick mixes and just 45s and just playing with it. People seem to like it, and it's something where the limitation actually helps me to focus more and get other stuff done. At the same time, I was talking to a friend, and he's like, "Why, don't limit yourself. Maybe add a CDJ next time. Why not? And see where this can go. So it's wherever you want to take it, and you just have to." It's so cliche, but you have to just be yourself and play with it, and take whatever comes out of it, and be yourself.
Yeah, that's amazing. Is there anything that we've not touched on? I mean, I know you've done some, you do some musical curation as well, some sort of corporate work, haven't you? For like Adidas and some others.
Yeah, I mean, I've done that. Unfortunately, that kind of took a hit with the whole pandemic thing because all these locations kind of had to close down. And but I did, for example, some music supervision work, music direction work for a company called Spin here in New York. They're a ping pong social club. They have locations all over the US, and I was also DJing all their grand openings whenever they had an opening in Seattle or in Philadelphia. Actually, dream come true. When we did the thing in Philly, the guy that booked me, like I worked with, Mathieu, he pulled me to the side and he was like, all right, so we have an MC coming right now. And I'm like, he didn't tell me before. Like, I was like, okay. And then someone showed up and was like, here's the USB, here are the instrumentals. I'm like, well, we're in Philly. Who is it? And he's like, I'll let you know in a second. It was Schoolie D.
Oh, wow.
So I actually DJ'd for Schoolie D, and it was all impromptu. I just pulled the instrumentals. He let me know what, and we actually had a good flow going and hung out later on. It was like a hip hop dream come true.
Nice, yeah.
Like DJ, but yeah, the whole curation thing. It's ironic. I did a lot more before the pandemic, but then during the pandemic, picked up the DJing again, the craft, and did a lot of videos and Twitch streams and stuff like that, and that kind of got me back into more DJing again, which I'm not mad at. It's ebbs and flows, and but this is as I said, this is really something I've been doing my whole life almost, like since I was a young kid, and so in one shape or form, it's always going to be in my life.
Yeah, and it looks like you say, you've managed to do that thing, and I think it's really interesting what you mentioned about kind of artist-driven DJs versus, I don't know what you'd call it, like sort of non-artist driven. I think that is a really interesting way to kind of separate the two, because it's something where you can go down. It's like Santero said about with the having the kind of bar work and then having like the Ministry of Sound residency and having to choose one path to go down.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, sometimes it's hard, but at the same time, you can come back to anything you want if you really pursue it, and if it fulfills you, and if you make it work, it's possible for anyone. There's always going to be obstacles, and it's going to be harder at a certain point than other points in life. But if you really want it, you can make it work. I was just talking to my friend DJ Coma, and he's like, man, he's doing more graphic work these days. But he's like, at the end of the year, I'm planning to go back into production and DJing more. And there's always ways. And I think, for me right now, I'm really happy with where I'm at right now, but there's still as Breakbeat Lou said, you're always a student, so it never stops.
I think as well it's something that's really good. I can't remember if it was on here, I was talking to someone and saying about going to like a mindfulness retreat that was all about death and impermanence, and it really made me think about how we can get caught up in being a certain thing, and we can let that definition of us guide where we end up, and we don't always step away and think, do I want to be doing this thing all the time? And it's fine to understand that you can step away from doing a certain thing to focus on another thing, and that other thing isn't going anywhere. And if you want to come back to it, you might find that you can get back to where you were quicker than it took you to get there the first time. Yep.
Exactly that.
I think that's been a really good bit of insight, and loads to take in there. Is there any other sort of key piece of advice that you want to give our listeners about if they were taking up DJing or just considering on their journey as a DJ?
Like I mentioned before, you have to start somewhere, and a lot of people ask me that, especially now through my videos. I get lots of hey, I want to DJ, and what can I do? And you just start somewhere, and then just start your journey. The starting is just probably the most important thing, and it's never going to be right. You're never going to have that ideal equipment. You're never going to have that ideal situation. I started with a tape deck and a belt-driven turntable to make a mix. Today, you can easily start with a controller, and then in a month, you can be. Once you separate your left and your right brain off, you don't even have to do that anymore. You can just use the sync button, but it's still you can still rock a party with that. I'm not against the sync button; that's another discussion. Yeah. But if you really want to pursue it, there's so many ways. The cost of starting has dropped considerably in the last decades, I'd say. So that's my advice. Just start somewhere with whatever you can find, whatever you feel comfortable with, and practice. It's that doesn't go away. I mean, even the most successful DJs in this in their fields, they still practice a lot, and that never goes away, and that's part of it. That's essentially my advice. Like start somewhere and then practice and find your journey, and obviously also know what you don't want to do. Like if you really feel really uncomfortable, sometimes it's good to get out of your comfort zone. But if it wears on you emotionally and physically, you maybe should go in another direction with it.
Yeah. And the final question then is there anyone in particular that you'd like to hear on this podcast talking about their journey?
I mean, I mentioned him a couple of times already in this, but I really think that Boogie Blind would be someone that, because it kind of he comes from that world and is just such an incredible human being, like a Harlem Renaissance man, and still doing his thing. And obviously, he would have a lot to say. Don't know if he would be able to do it, but maybe you can get him on here. That'll be sweet.
I'll certainly give it a try. And just where can anyone find you online who isn't following you already?
Probably the best is still Instagram, Sticky Dojah, Sticky Dojah with an H in the end. You can find me there, and also on Bandcamp. I think everything is just Sticky Dojah. So yeah, easy to find.
Brilliant. Thanks ever so much for your time today.
Thanks, Adam. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for tuning in to this episode of Once a DJ. If you'd like to support the show, then head to onceadj.com/support to find out how you can help. If you'd like to get in touch with any feedback or suggestions, email onceadjpodcast@gmail.com. Once a DJ is produced by the good people at Remote Control. If you'd like to find out more about working with them, head to remote-ctrl.co.uk.
That was nice.